Hi, Finance and Coffee, and welcome to another edition of Talking Finance with me. Thanks for tuning in today. I've got a very special guest, Dan Walsh from the MFAA. Hi, Dan. How are you today?
Good, thanks, Dan. How are you?
I love to be. I've got a sunny background there. It is slightly sunny, but it's not looking that nice in Melbourne. So I'm probably not doing as well as you in Sydney, where the weather is always much better.
Yeah, we're not too bad today. I haven't had a big look at it today, but the sun is out at the moment, and we're probably mid-20 degrees, so it's nice.
That's awesome. I hate you, but that's another thing altogether. Okay, so let's have a quick intro of who you are and what your role is, because I think a few people in the audience don't actually know yet, or may not be aware of what you do, and the important things that you're doing for the MFAA in the industry. So can we get a quick, I suppose, rundown in terms of how long you've been there MFAA and what your role there is?
Yeah, sure. So I've been with the MFAA now for just on 5 years, just clicked over 5 years. Actually, we'll click over 5 years next month. So the period before that, I was in the industry since 2000, actually, 2000. Had a couple of 7-year stints with Mortgage Choice in their learning and development and business development areas. So it's quite an extensive foray in the industry. Actually, believe it or not, assisted writing the first certificate that came into the industry in the early 2000s, awesome. Which is a punishment for me, because people still remember it. And prior to that, actually had 5 years with American Express as their Asia Pacific risk management training consultant, which gave me a brilliant exposure to credit risk, but also service. American Express had quite extensive customer service training, and were passionate believers in service. And that was probably my entry or foray into adult education and learning and development. I learned a lot there through them, but unfortunately had to leave them because of the high need for overseas travel when we were starting a family. So then joined the mortgage broking industry and continued my passion for adult education and learning and development.
There you go. Now, I suppose the purpose of this conversation today is because you've been working on something, and it's just been announced recently. Can you tell me, I suppose you can call it, what that's about?
Yeah, so we launched last Thursday, or released our MFAA mentoring standards to our membership and to the wider industry. They take effect on the 1st of July. So there's no need for a lot of our mentors and mentees that are currently going through the process. They will still continue that journey. But the standards will take effect from the 1st of July. It's been an exciting period for us. We have spent quite a bit of time, looking at the landscape of mentoring across our industry, across comparable industries as well, in accountants and financial planning, and our sister association in Canada. So we're very excited to launch what we see as an ongoing continuous improvement process to bringing in quality people and giving quality education and learning pathways. And mentoring is a key part of that. And the industry, everyone in the industry has an opinion of mentoring, and we heard and listened to a lot of those over the last couple of years. But it's exciting to actually put some improved standards out there for the industry to react to and update the programs that exist at the moment.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So I'm just going to share with the audience quickly the mentoring standards PDF here. For you guys out there at the moment who are MFAA members, you can jump onto the MFAA website to download and have a look at it if you haven't done so already. For the members of Finance and Coffee, I'll be uploading that again either tomorrow or Monday for you guys to check out. So I won't go through all of that because that's for you guys to have a look later on, and it's going to be stored in the file section. So if you don't know or don't really already know, there is a file section in Finance and Coffee that stores a lot of awesome stuff in there. Okay, but anyway, we'll go back to Dan and me. Yeah, but Dan, do you mind if I go back a step, right, and ask you, what the background on mentoring is, if for, I suppose you can call it, you should know, that the audience should know, but let's have a quick review of what it was.
Well, yeah, and I guess what it is, a lot of people have different definitions of what mentoring is, particularly in our industry. But I guess essentially what it is an experienced professional taking a new industry entrant under their wing and providing that guidance and support. And mentoring is a pretty extensive title, but it actually is a lot more than just what pure mentoring is. It's not just a mentor-protege relationship that you see in movies and so on. It's a lot deeper and should be a lot deeper, and it goes across coaching, training, mentoring, but that guidance and support are probably the two words we keep coming back to. And in our industry, it's been around since I can remember, in the early 2000s. It's a component that regulators expect to be undertaken. What we've done recently is provide more clarity and certainly transparency around what the standards should be. But it is a key component. I see it as absolutely critical. We have the path at the moment to enter our industries through the current qualifications with the MFAA. It's the Diploma of Finance and Mortgage Broking Management. A lot of our aggregators provide very extensive induction and compliance and systems training, and lenders provide some product and policy training as well. The key component that adds to that quality experience is the mentoring. That's that on-the-job, timely, responsive hand-holding, if you like, in those early months, particularly in those first couple of years for a new broker. Often, if a broker doesn't join an established business and has other loan writers and business owners around them, it can be quite isolating, and mentoring picks that gap up. And we're trying in the standards to actually make it more proactive than reactive, as it has been in the past, that there's actually a learning path with some content and structure to it, where a mentee, and that's the person being mentored, can actually follow a structured program. It's been provided by the rightly qualified mentor, and have a better experience than what some of us have had in the past with that disparate mentoring experience. And as I said, we saw a lot of different opinions, and a lot of feedback received through the process told us that the experience wasn't consistent across our country and across our industry, and the standards go a long way to address that.
Yeah, I think that was a nice segue into my next question, wasn't it? Which was, why make these changes and release the new standards? Because there was, I suppose you can call it, was very ad hoc before, and I guess there was no real proper roadmap. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a good point. Good choice of words. Yeah. So, we obviously listened to the industry. There was a lot of noise. When I particularly took this job as head of education and events at the MFAA, one of the first things Mike and the team talked about was the issue with mentoring, and to drive a solution in that place. And it has taken quite a bit of time to get sort of industry alignment. And one of the reasons for the new standards was to chase that holy grail of getting the mentoring process aligned to industry expectation and best practices. There are some great mentoring providers out there in our industry, some really superb offerings that offer that structure and depth to the program. And that's the best practice we are looking at. And I often say, obviously there was the industry noise around it, but I've obviously worked in the industry for a time and noticed it is hard to find good mentors in our industry. There's probably a quantity issue as well across the country. And we hopefully the standards will drive a lot of people more to be attracted to being a mentor once they meet the qualifications. But it certainly was the noise, the experiences that mentees were having, and a lot of feedback that we received, the changes that were required, the feedback we were getting around the transparency, the lack of clarity. So if someone was signing up with a mentor, oftentimes they weren't getting an expectation set of what service and support they would be getting, when they would be getting it, what would it cover. and a lot of that was through feedback that we got when I started, but also the feedback we get constantly at the MFAA.
Yeah, and we've seen a few anonymous posts, obviously, on the group as well, where the new starters weren't too pleased with their current arrangements. They're looking for new homes, I suppose you can call it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So moving on to my next question, because you said it before, you listen to people and you listen to providers and so forth. Could I ask, who was part of that consultation process and when designing the new standards?
Yeah, so it was quite an extensive process we went through. And we started with setting up a mentor focus group. So we spoke to a group of about 12 mentors initially to get their feedback on what they saw as the pros and cons, the bits that were missing in mentoring across the industry. We also consulted with over 10 aggregation groups and over 10 lenders, both majors and non-bank providers as well. We also spoke to mentees and new members that joined the MFAA and their experience, both initially, some that were actually active and during the process, some that had just completed a mentoring process through the existing processes. And then we also have a young professionals panel at the MFAA, and they provided significant input into the standards and where they needed to be improved. So it was quite extensive. We went back and forth with a lot of the aggregators and lenders several times, and we had several consultations meetings at group level and individual levels as well. But the mentees, mentors, the aggregators, lenders combined, plus the feedback we received through our membership team, services team, and to myself and my partner in crime, Anna Brakovic, as well. So we received quite extensive feedback through the process and valued all that input throughout to get where we landed with the standards today. So it was quite an interesting process, quite an interesting experience. What I have to say, Deanne, and I notice that every now and again in Finance and Coffee, there's a lot of passion about it and a lot of emotion about it. And thankfully, with the standards, and I often refer to the standards and the law as your base point, it's what you do above those that actually creates a better practice. So yeah, it was a great process. We met a lot of people in the industry. As I said, the highlight was the passion and the emotion right across the board on this topic. And you obviously see it every now and again through Finance and Coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously, if we make this better, then because we know that the percentage of new brokers who stay beyond that 2-year period is the amount of dropout is actually quite high, right? So this is only helping I suppose people stay longer, right?
Yeah. I mentioned that that proactive versus reactive support. A lot of the mentees it was pure reactive support, whereas the situation might be they have a scenario or a phone call inquiry, and they ring the mentor for support, and the service delivery back to them was at the end of the day or within 24 hours or even 3 hours. And for a new broker, it's actually not really acceptable because they're quite anxious. As I say, a lot of them are isolated, working on their own, and that first phone call or two that they get from a client, they're like gold to them. And the practice that they can get from that with the right support. And one of the key outcomes for all of us is that the customer outcomes are positive as a result. No matter who they ring in our industry, the customer outcomes need to be number one. And thankfully with BID, that goes a long way to addressing that. But good mentoring, and proactive support make sure that happens as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've had the I suppose the original guideline, and now you're going through a new process of consultation and so forth, and you issued a new one. So can you tell me what the key features are that makes it better than the old one?
Yeah, I think essentially it's more rounded. So obviously there's the detail of being who can be a mentor and certainly who can be a mentee, but certainly the qualifications and experience. We've been quite precise with that now, and you can see those in the standards. There's sort of 4 areas that the standards cover. It's that the qualifications and experience of the mentor, the participant support that needs to be provided. So a lot of the feedback we're getting is I need to know what I'm going to get when I take up a mentoring relationship. It's the program itself and the structure and depth of that program and what is offered within that. And then the fourth area is the assessment and evaluation and review of the overall program, so that the mentee has a role to play there as in providing feedback to the mentor on on their progress, etc., but also on the experience as a whole. So they're the four elements where we feel the standards have been improved. But in particular, those that want to offer a mentor program, there's much more clarity and transparency in the expectation of what should be delivered there as a mentor or someone offering a mentor program. And that's very important. That was loud and clear, that when people were signing up in years gone by to a mentor in a program, they weren't exactly sure of what was to be delivered. And what we've highlighted in the standards within the participant support section in the program is there's expectations on both parties. There's expectations on the mentee as much as the mentor. The mentee takes a responsible role in participating effectively in the program as much as the mentor delivering it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, because that's the. I mean, you see it on Finance Coffee periodically. And I've also had conversations with some people as well, going, "I want to be a mentor, but what do I do? What am I supposed to do once I become a mentor?" So there is, sadly, on one element, there is I suppose, a commercial one, which is I want to make more money. But I also want to teach someone to do something. But how should I structure that and so forth, right? So I guess that's a nice segue to my next question for you, right? So what does it take to be a mentor? And would like a better word, when someone asks me, should I encourage everyone to be a mentor, or should I just say, hey, you know what, maybe not?
It's clearly not for everyone, as you know. I think the first thing to do is actually look at the standards as your first point. But I think there's an extension to just the standards, as I mentioned before. It's a large commitment, and that commitment is that you've got the time to spend with your mentees. You can deliver a quality service that doesn't affect that mentee's customer engagement and the customer outcomes. But it's probably the two words on top of meeting the standards. You've got the experience, you've got the qualifications, but do you have the time and do you have the commitment to support those new members to our industry? And that's essential. It can't be a social sort of contact. It has to be delivered with best practice, with quality, and the timing is imperative for the mentee and for their journey. Excuse me, for their learning journey. It has to be delivered right on time, and that knowledge. You'd learn so much through diplomas and through your aggregator and lender training, but you really learn a lot more on top of that on your day-to-day experiences and those client engagements where the rubber hits the road. But they're probably my three tips: is understand the standards, have the time to commit, and be committed to the program as well. It's not for everyone, and as you see, and you do see the odd chat going around, even in Finance and Coffee, on occasion you might see, why don't you ring your mentor? And it should be your first point of call a lot of the time. So the standards, time, the ability to commit the time, and the commitment itself to wanting to see, we are an aging industry at the same time. We want to bring quality new recruits into the industry, and the way to do it is an effective mentoring relationship.
Yeah, and this is my own message to people who are currently mentees themselves, right? Because it goes both ways. It's not just a commitment from the mentor, but it's also a commitment by you as a mentee to come into the industry and actually invest in yourself properly, right? So it's not about getting someone to be your mentor on paper, or paying the lowest amount to have someone mentor you, because you're not gonna. That's why you fail. That's right. So if I always talk about me. This one time we were trying to open a noodle shop, and I was already planning to put somewhere in this vicinity of $80,000 towards opening that noodle shop. But when you have new people coming to this industry, not wanting to put a significant amount in terms of investing yourself with a proper mentor, it's quite, well, that's why you get the results you get. So, but
Yeah.
that aside, I know you said it
If I
before.
can just add there, Dan, it's also, I think, with the standards we put together, it's the knowledge that a mentor brings across all areas of running a broking business as well. And we've extended some of the content coverage in the standards around not just loan scenario and loan vetting. It's around your customer engagement techniques, handling inquiry, handling interviews, your admin and your workflow management. Obviously, loan scenarios, being compliant, and producing high quality loan submissions as well. But also those two parts that often got missed in mentoring programs were around their business sustainability, particularly around lead generation and networking and setting up referrals, was often missing. And in those early months is when the phone is not ringing. It's what are you doing with your time to generate leads to your business? And then finally, that self-management and well-being component. A lot of the mentees and the young professionals said, it's quite a lonely experience when you start, if you're starting on your own. So we're asking mentors through the standards to actually take a focus on how is the individual. There might be some times through a mentoring relationship where you have those, people call them come to Jesus meetings, but where is it the right thing for you? Sometimes the industry isn't right for you. It's quite technical, it's quite compliant, it requires commitment. And so we in that self-management area, we focus on that well-being and those conversations that sometimes need to be had. And we had some great conversations with mentors where they have pretty significant emotionally charged conversations with mentees, about that very experience in those early months. So I think that's what we tried to design in the standards, that it's a broad spectrum of what you're offering in support and guidance, and it should be a mentor has been there, done that. They've started young once and started a new business once and on their own and went through the mistakes we all make. But I think we certainly needed to be wider in our consideration of what mentoring is, where it's often focused on lending and lending scenarios. These people are often running businesses and need that guidance about successfully running a business overall, not just the key component, which is lending, but obviously support the individual as much as the technical.
Absolutely. All right. So now, you said this earlier in the conversation as well. So is there some key dates that we need to be aware of, and basically who would it impact?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the standards take effect from the 1st of July. If you're currently in a mentoring process, you'll just carry on as the standards you started with. So we won't be affecting anyone that's 12 months in or 14 months into a process. They can continue on. We will be establishing a list, an MFAA list of endorsed mentors. So we'll be retiring our current list of mentors on the 1st of July, and we're asking people to apply for MFAA endorsement. And there's two endorsements we're talking about. It's the individual mentors will receive, if they're successful in meeting the standards, they'll receive an MFAA endorsed mentor designation. And if they run a program, they can apply to have that program endorsed as well. So we realise there's some larger groups that actually have multi-mentors within their company. Some of them will have expertise in certain areas and may not be the mentor precisely, but within the program, the coverage meets the standards. So we'll have the MFAA endorsed mentor program as well. And then I was going to add another thing there. If you currently have an approved mentor status with your aggregation group or with a lender, you will maintain that as well. So there's certain mentors that have an approved status, and they're generally the ones that employ people in their business and mentor directly. They will retain that status as well. But they in addition, can apply for MFAA endorsement if they want to mentor wider than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Could I just add just one more thing as well? Sort of similar to what I was saying before, people have approached me, and they probably approach you as well, going, I want to be a mentor, but I don't know what to do. Right? I mean, some people are fantastic operators, but they may not be good teachers, or they don't know how to teach yet, right? So do you think that, what do you call it? There are courses out there for you to be a mentor. Would that be taken into consideration as well when a broker applies to be a mentor with the MFAA?
Yeah, absolutely. We encourage that sort of, I call it, I guess, a more soft skill area that people have undertaken, either coaching, leadership. Some people do the training and assessment qualifications through TAFE as well. That provides skills in that area as well. But there are some of the larger mentor companies offer train and mentor programs as well that are quite significant, and they're worth investing in as well. And as you say, not everyone is a good communicator, for example, so may not be an ideal mentor as well. And we've got some people that have the most amazing subject matter expertise, but are not very well aligned to communicating that successfully to others. So it's not for everyone, but we absolutely encourage people doing training courses around that, particularly around coaching and leadership, in an area that we noticed sort of not missing, but not as popular across the industries. Anything around that emotional intelligence area as well. I think it teaches people a lot about how we think, and gives you a lot better understanding of reading someone and reading a room as well.
Yeah, awesome. I had that segue because there was a comment that was made. The good people at Mr. Mentor have a great program as well. But on that, Dan, any last words from you? Because this has been fantastic. This is the first time we've chatted, and I've interviewed you, so it's been awesome.
No, we've chatted many times. You just ignore me because you're so popular at the events.
It's more of an in-depth chat rather than the usual, hey, how are you at these events, right? And like I said to you before, I never my first time I heard you chat to a big audience was at the MFAA PD day earlier this year, and I was blown away because usually we don't see you on stage in real life. I mean,
yeah, it's true. I guess in closing, we've been, I'm trying to get my words right here, but really happy with the response we've had to these. It's only been a short period of time though, but we've been inundated with people applying for endorsement already, which is great. We've had huge amounts of support that standards have actually got out there, and that we are, improving this space. I think we're absolutely ecstatic that we've got to this far, but we don't see it's the end. We'll see that these standards will change, will adapt along with regulatory requirements or industry requirements going forward, and it will be a continuous improvement focus. But we at the MFAA are absolutely focused on improving and moving this industry to a profession, and mentoring was one of those areas that needed a focus on it. We'll have work to do in the future around CPD, around RTOs, and the way they provide education to our industry new members. But I think this is a great first step for us. We've done a lot of work, and particularly I mention her again, my partner in crime, Anna Bratkovic, just so her phone rings more than mine. But we're really ecstatic. But as I say, this is it's a start of a journey. This industry is on a journey, and self-regulation is part of that, and mentoring is part of that self-regulation journey. And I think based on feedback, as I say, in less than a week, we're ecstatic in the way this has been received. There will be people that won't be able to mentor now, potential from the 1st of July. But the standards are about improving that onboarding of our industry people. So we're looking forward to embedding these from the 1st of July. And we're happy to take, as we have in the last few days, any questions around that to help people get across the line if that's what they're hoping to do.
Okay, that's awesome. And once again, congratulations, because this is awesome. And we'll try to support the MFAA as best as we can as well, because by default, we get members who felt that they lack support come to us. So that were let down by their original mentors. I mean, or maybe their mentors was too busy. That's another thing altogether.
Yeah.
But
I
no,
think
thank you very much.
Yeah, one of the things is that clarity of expectation is one of the essential components we've delivered here. Is a mentee can see what they should be getting in a process, in the mentoring process and a program, and mentors now can use the standard as a minimum guidance to how they should be offering a program.
Absolutely, and then the mentee can also use that as a guide to talk to their clients as well, because I think the intelligence or the experience in terms of getting them to manage how to manage your own clients' expectations will reflect on this too, because you're not going to be at everyone's beck and call, right? So it's that's a good step to have a look at and replicate as well. Dan, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll have you back on board to have a chat later on in the year.
Yeah, not a problem. Happy to help. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.